For today's edition of NFL Grades, we are tackling one of the best middle linebackers of all time. This man was the definition of a middle linebacker. He set the standard for the middle linebacker position in the 60s. He is the consummate Mr. Bear, Chicago Bear. That is, every Packer fan knows him because he was a consummate troll, and every Bears fan, he is seen as a legend, along with the rest of the league too. Today we are talking about the great Dick Butkus, and I do realize that in the poll, someone mentioned that people pick Dick Butkus because of his name. It's like, come on, people, grow up. Like, I get it. It is kind of a funny name, but the man has since died in the last couple of years, so he deserves to be remembered as the legend that he was. Even though I'm a Packer fan, I can still recognize that he was truly great, and the middle linebacker position in the NFL would not be the same without him. But let me know what you think down below, and let's get to it. Starting with where he came from. He was literally born Chicago, Illinois. So again, more of a Bear connection there. He came out of Illinois, third overall in the NFL draft. He also was drafted in the second round by the Denver Broncos of the AFL. Now, yes, like in the 80s when the USFL was around drafting players for guys that would probably never play in their league, AFL saw enough in him to draft him, although maybe not as much as the Bears because he was a second round pick. I mean, one of the best middle linebackers of all time, being a second round pick for the Denver Broncos. But the Bears are one of the greatest franchises of all time. Even me as a Packers fan realizes this, but even when Dick Butkus played for them, they never made it to a conference championship, which is really sad. Such a great player. I mean, he also played during the time of Gale Sayers. Gale Sayers was drafted in the same round, so really he was the only guy that really stood a chance against him for Rookie of the Year, and of course, Gale Sayers did end up winning Rookie of the Year. But starting out in 1965, 14 games played, 14 games started, 5 interceptions, 7 fumble recoveries, 1 sack, a Pro Bowl, and an All-Pro number 1 selection. Now, it is important to remember, I did not mention tackles because until 1994, tackles were not kept as a reliable stat. There were many different ways to calculate tackle results, but there was no consummate tackle stat. Same thing with sacks. I mean, yes, he got a sack. I looked on Pro Football Reference and they gave him stats, but I don't believe sacks were kept until the 70s at the very earliest. But again, he had a great rookie year, and he was only beat out by Gale Sayers for an actual Rookie of the Year. But man, he was off to a great start. Then 66 come around, another 14 games played, another 14 games started. 1 interception this time, 4 fumble recoveries, and only a half a sack. Again, even as a middle linebacker, this time this is still pretty good. I mean, like I said, sacks were not really a reliable stat even at this time, and still, for a middle linebacker to even be able to get 1 or half a sack is still a good thing because he was moving side to side, going all over the field. He could stand up to the best tight ends, running backs, wide receivers of his time, and he was just a big, strong guy that could do it all. Then we get to 67. Another 14 games played, another 14 games started, 1 interception, 3 fumble recoveries, and 4 sacks. And this time only a Pro Bowl selection, but, I mean, he still did really well. I mean, he's basically went to the Pro Bowl every year of his career. I forgot to mention, just like a 66, he was All-Pro 2 that year. But again, still really good, still defining the position even today. Then we get to 68. Only 13 games played, 13 games started, 3 interceptions, 1 fumble recovery, 0 sacks. But he was still Pro Bowl, All-Pro 1, and he was 4th in MVP voting that year. Again, like I mentioned before, even during his heyday, even during his best years, this team, Bears, never made it above second place in their division. They were always held back. And especially in his later years when he was really good, that's when the Bears started to slide down. The first couple of years they were second, third, and second, and then 68 rolls around, and that's when the Bears started to slowly slide down, slide off, and the rest is history. 69, 13 games played, 13 games started, 2 interceptions, 2 fumble recoveries, 2 sacks, another All-Pro selection, All-Pro 1, Pro Bowl, and 5th in MVP, 6th in MVP voting, I should say. Again, Bears were not a great team during this time. They really weren't. And like I said before, it's a shame that a guy with Dick Butkus never won anything with the Bears. I mean, you plop him down in just about any other Bears generation, and they're winning like several champions or maybe even more Super Bowls. It's an important thought and experience to wonder if you add Dick Butkus into the 1985 Bears, does he start? Because we already know the Bears had many great linebackers at the time, but would Dick Butkus from the 60s still start for the 1985 Bears? It's a thing to wonder about. Then we get to 1970. One of his last great years. I mean, he still always had really good years every year of his career. 14 games played, 14 games started, 3 interceptions, 2 fumble recoveries, 2 sacks, another Pro Bowl selection, another All-Pro 1, and 5th in MVP voting. Now, this is the year where his career kind of went south. He had a really bad knee injury and really did not respond to surgery. So he played 2 more years after this. And 71, 14 games played, 14 games started, 4 interceptions, 3 fumble recoveries, half a sack, another Pro Bowl selection, no All-Pro 1, but again, still good. But again, the Bears were like 4th this year. I think they only won 4 games or so. Then we get to 1971, 14 games played. No, we get to 72, 14 games played, 14 games started, 2 interceptions, 4 fumble recoveries, 1 sack, and it's the last All-Pro 1 selection. At this time, he was an All-Pro player 6 times. He was a Pro Bowler 8 times. And even in his last year, 73, 9 games played, 9 games started, 1 interception, 1 fumble recovery, 0 sacks, and no Pro Bowl. But this was at the end of his career. The injuries had truly caught up to him. I mean, look at the way Dick Butkus played. He was all over the field. He was constantly throwing himself at everybody. He was throwing people down. He was manhandling people in general. I mean, he was just a beast among men in the middle of the field. You didn't want to get hit by a guy like Dick Butkus. I mean, especially because this was during a time where the NFL was not so pussified and the defense could actually play defense. You could hit a player hard. You could hit them high. You could hit them low. Sure, injuries happened as a result, but I would argue that it was more pure football action in the 60s, 50s, 40s, late 70s, even early 80s, where defenses thrived. And even though in this year the Bears were finished 4th, I believe they only won like 3 games. Again, they were one of the worst teams in the league. He still had an impact, just not what he did in his early career. And when he ended up, he played over 100 games. He had 22 interceptions. He had 25 fumbles recovered, which is still a record for the Bears as a team. And he's one of the true greats. He was selected to the Hall of Fame 1979, his first year of eligibility. So again, the voters recognize that he's truly one of the greats and that he should get in. He doesn't have to wait like a lot of other greats have done since then, but he got in right away. All 60s and all 70s team. He was a member of the NFL's 75th anniversary team. And like I said, he never played in a conference championship or a league championship ever, which is really disappointing considering how truly great he was. And like I said earlier, also, the Bears never finished in first place ever during his 9 years in the NFL. But again, he was a warrior, he was a true great, and like I said, he started movies. He was all over social media later in his life. He was a consummate troll. Yes, always trolling us Packers fans. But he was still a Bear for life. He even thanked George Hallis during his pro football enshrinement, who had been at the hospital at the time. So he recognized how great George Hallis was to his career. I mean, he really was. I mean, he was one of the founders of the NFL, one of the true legends of the game. And he had a great family. People were there. He was introduced by his coach in Illinois during his Hall of Fame induction. And he went in with the likes of Johnny Unitas into the Hall of Fame. So again, several good players went into the Hall of Fame in 1979, and you can argue Dick Butkus was the best of them. But let me know what you think down in the comments as well, especially from you Bears fans, if I did a good job talking about Dick Butkus, Mr. Bear, the great Chicago Bears middle linebacker and arguably one of the best middle linebackers of the NFL. And that's saying, even with what has become of the middle linebacker position, it's still just as important now as it was back in the 60s. The middle linebacker spot was seen as the field general, the commander, the head play caller of the defense, and he was a great. I wanted to do him justice, and I really hope I did take Butkus justice today. Let me know what you think down in the comments below, and have a great day. And as always, God bless and go Pack Go.